righty. Welcome, everyone. We're going to give folks a moment to hop into the room. Thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday evening for our social entrepreneurship segment. All righty, so we are going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Welcome teachers and audiences who are viewing this today. My name is Vinay Brown and I am your host for the Mindset Maker series here at NFTE. And today's topic is focused on social entrepreneurship. And what is that? Social entrepreneurship is essentially entrepreneurship that is focused in mission-driven innovation, sustainability, and really an overall concept that can help our greater world. And today's guest speaker, we are joined by none other than Southeast NFTE alum, Javon Howell, who's also the Founders Forum winner of 2022. So Javon, thank you so much for joining us. I would love to ask a little bit more about who you are and your entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, so hold on, let me see. There's someone else is sharing. Let me close that. Yeah, so a little bit about me, am I starting the whole presentation now or just a quick tidbit?
We're just rolling on into it.
Okay, sure. So for me, I guess the first thing, I'm an immigrant. I'm from Jamaica. I don't have the accent anymore, but I wanted to kind of make this presentation as a way to kind of guide you guys through a bit of understanding me and my journey. Because at the end of the day, right, I think when I always thought about business and people who are business leaders, you always see them when you read the books that there are all these people that are almost kind of larger than life, right? You think about Bill Gates, you think about Elon Musk, so and so. And I've always kind of found that when I read their books, I check their stories, it always makes it seem so like they're always perfect. So I wanted to kind of show you a bit about me that shows me as a natural person, and that, frankly, first and foremost, I am imperfect, but it's because of those imperfections that I'm able to master and be someone I think profound and successful in what I do. So hailing from Jamaica, I came to the US as a child at 6 years old with my family. And, for me, creating Shop Howell has been like a big growth and development for me, like as a person, as a leader, as an individual. But I would say little small things about me too to keep in consideration, like I have ADHD. I'm not neurotypical. And I emphasize that because I think when most people think of, you know, what holds them back, what drives them, I can think of myself as someone who every day battles an invisible challenge and that sometimes I struggle to focus. But I think it's because of that relentless sense of having to fight to focus that I think it's allowed me to be clever in how I approach solutions. And I think many people, maybe some people who are on this call, who are probably sitting there thinking, I have dyslexia, I have this, I have that. I would like to basically say that, that's not the end. And I think, frankly, you have a strength in what many don't have because you're able to think differently. And I think thinking differently is what's going to help each of everyone here, in even the smallest ways to be successful. But I would say another small thing about me as well, I'm attracted to detail. Notice the color coordination of the outfit, notice the color coordination of these PowerPoints made by my team, but this is something that I think really exemplifies who I am. And I think is something that I have basically included in the work that I do at Shop Howell, which I'll be telling you about later that I think will be, uh, I think you guys will see how it all comes together in the end. But next slide, please, Vinny. So I think a bit about me, and it's just something that I kind of rediscovered as I was applying for NFTE's Founders Forum years ago, was, you know, I always realized that my dream of starting a business kind of originated when I was, I think, around middle school. Because my first dream was I wanted to explore space. If you guys haven't seen my little theme here, like shooting for the stars, all of that, my dreams are something that's very important to me, right? I'm not someone who thinks that dreams are just something you think about. I think of them as reality, right? This is something that I intend to do. And so Richard Branson, I remember he always stuck out to me as a different type of business person, different type of entrepreneur, because I kind of thought of Bill Gates as like, he's rich, but he's boring. Like he looks like a nerd. He just wears like a suit. He just wears the glasses. But Richard Branson was just doing these crazy things. I think it was his TV show Richard Branson's, I think Search for the Best, where he was trying to find a protege to basically lead his company. And I just loved the way that he did things. Like he traveled, he was an adventurer, he did these crazy things, and he was just like a fun guy, like a fun personality, and he was just very authentic. And also, I loved and I learned that he was someone who was dyslexic. He was someone who was born with something that people might think of as a disability, but he was able to use that to actually be a strength, and that's something I really respected about him. But I would say having those dreams wouldn't have been nothing without having Nifty, like I know I'm done just saying that because I'm here, right? And I'm doing this talk, but I put this logo from back in the day because when I joined Nifty, that was the logo, right? It was the very old one. When I got reconnected with Nifty in college, I didn't even recognize it. I genuinely didn't because I was like talking to someone in my grad school and doing a program, and I was like, I had a program that was like this, and I was like, maybe it was Nifty. And I looked back and I had my old presentations from like years ago on my laptop, and I was like, no way. But Nifty I think was really helpful for me, and I think for many of you who are on the call, I take it for granted, but I think it's just something that really kind of helped to stoke those early embers of wanting to do business. And the program just really showed me how to take those small, early nascent thoughts and really how to take them and bring them to reality. And so that was something that I would say you guys are already on the right track. And you're going to see why, because I think I started late, but I think all of you guys, even being here right now, you're ahead of where I was. And I think if that's the case, I honestly have a tremendous amount of hope for what you guys can accomplish. But next slide. Okay. So I apologize for the small change of the formatting. There were some issues when we transitioned to PowerPoint here for the dipping your toe, but I put this slide here to highlight, as part of the journey that I took. You're going to see in the top left a picture of a shoebox with some fertilizer sticks. So I just want you guys to know that this was literally my very first shipment to Amazon when I started selling items, right? And so my journey, you guys saw that I said I did Nifty, I did it in high school. What you guys don't know is that basically in the transition from high school to, being an adult, I spent many years honestly feeling incomplete, that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, that I wasn't fulfilling my dream. And that was very difficult for me because I felt very anxious. I felt like, doing a business was just, it made me nervous. It made me feel like this is something that's so hard. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had bits of anxiety. And so when COVID happened, in 2020, I started realizing that I just had to take a step. I just had to dip my toe in, so to speak. And so I remember I had tried doing an Amazon business back in 2017. But I was broke. I was a college student, didn't have money. And so when 2020 happened, I was already working a job. I had saved up some money. And so I took like, just some basic cash. And I reached out to someone that I knew, and he told me how I can basically start doing just flipping products. At the time during COVID, if you guys remember, people weren't going to stores, so they were buying everything online. The prices rose, everything was getting crazy. So one of the things that I did was just trying to learn how to buy things in like Walmart and dollar stores and how to flip them. And so I showcased this picture of the shoebox because this was literally what I had to jump in my closet and be like, yeah, what do I have? I don't have a box. Like I have this stuff. And so I grabbed this Adidas shoebox, but I show a picture right below there where it's one of the pallets that I ordered less than a year later, where I was at that point buying hundreds of pounds of products. And I wasn't no longer literally, because in the beginning when I was doing this, it's giving you some context. I was going to grocery stores, filling them top to bottom, like carrying two shopping carts, looking like I was some sort of doomsday prepper. And I was going to about five, six, seven Walmarts per week, like that, probably double that amount of Family Dollars and Dollar Trees to basically buy several items that I knew were going to sell well, and just basically filling up a part of my house with tons of bags and then stacking them up, packing boxes and shipping them to Amazon. So when I went to doing the pallets, I was basically adjusting my business model, going from buying the products myself, packing them myself, shipping them myself, to basically having everything be more systemized, being shipped to a warehouse where they would pack everything, prep everything for me. I went from basically doing a lot of the hard work to basically becoming a mover of items. And that took place in over the course of less than a year. And that was, I think, a nice bit of growth for me. But some bad stuff happened. Next slide. So, the business when I started it initially, I didn't give you guys that context. It was called Howell International. And it was funny because I was like, I'm very direct like that. I was like, I want to have my name in it, my last name Howell. But then I was like, I want to have an international business. So I was like, how international? Why not? And this is the first logo that I had made from way back. Again, notice the subtle space theme, right? I always wanted that to be something very like tongue in cheek. Next slide. But the thing that I would say really kind of struck me with the business though, because I started off in April 2020, around the next year in 2021, when I started doing the whole wholesale, buying the pallets of things, I came to understand what the COVID supply chain crash was, right? You guys might remember when they were saying all these goods were stuck in, what was it, Los LA or some parts of California. Basically, what should have been delivered, you know, let's say in taking 2 weeks to get delivered, what I was seeing was taking about 2.5 months. And so for me, it was the first time I was doing this. I didn't even know how long things were supposed to take. I was ordering primarily packaged food items. So yes, there's an expiration date. Yes, things are gonna probably get lost. Yes, yes, and yes. So basically, I went from thinking I'm gonna spend basically all the money I just made over the past several months, and I'm gonna buy these like, big pallets of stuff that were on paper ready to sell and sell well. But because things came in so late, I had many things that were expired, many things that, I had one shipment that just didn't arrive. And so I basically went through a moment of a crisis, because I was seeing almost everything that I built, basically fall apart. And so pretty much I was losing my head. And so I think, I put this here. And I know that I'm just kind of moving through it like it was a small thing, but this was huge, um, because I didn't know what to do. And so I would say looking back, what I realized was, I had to literally keep my head in the game. I had to play motivational music. I was literally crying sometimes, like just trying to keep my head in the game of saying, this isn't it. I have to keep going. I have to keep moving because, failure doesn't happen until you stop and you give up. And so I still had some money. I still had inventory. So what I had to do was I had to start selling my items at a loss just to get some money back. Because the thing was, I was competing with people at that point because the things came so late that people were finally getting back in the game. They had way more money than I did. They were able to buy items at much lower cost. And so they're able to sell it at much lower than I could. So the thing was that I had to do was essentially just say, screw it. I'm running out of cash. I have to just sell these items at a loss just to get my money back. And then I can invest in other things. And so I started to do that, even to get ahead of some of the things that were going to expire. You know what I mean? Like just get rid of them before they expire, get them sold, etc. So going through that process, I remember one thing that I kept seeing was every now and then I would see products that, I'm trying to sell. I'm just at that point just reselling items. I'm just getting them. I'm putting them on listings on Amazon that are already made. But I always kept seeing that their product pages weren't really that well done. And so I kind of just kept thinking that this was just a fluke because for me, when I learned Amazon, I learned by going to meetup groups. I went by talking to people. Even the guy that showed me how to do the reselling, I feel like I was always surrounded by these experts. So I kind of kept thinking that these guys are experts, it's just the flukes that I'm seeing that aren't selling well. And so we were trying to then pivot a little bit to try to buy products directly from brands versus buying from distributors because at least I was thinking I can get the best price. I can become uh, like a what's the word? Exclusive seller of items so that we don't have to compete with anyone and basically start to try to build those accounts. That was my goal um, going into 2021. Next slide, please. So the pivot to service really happened, and just pretend to ease on the right place. The pivot to service happened when we joined the Amazon Black Business Accelerator program. So towards the end of 2021, 2022, 2022, we got into the BBA program. And so one of my goals I remember when writing my application was that, I'm going to join this program. And the key thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to learn from all these super, advanced Amazon business what to do to become even better. And like the crazy part, which I found so ironic in the end, was that a lot of the people that I met in the program, they weren't experts. They were just everyday people. They were people who just, because of COVID, they're at home. They finally had the time to create these businesses that they probably had, these products that they've thought about for so long. They finally had the time. They finally had the moment where the world stood still for a year, but the thing was, they were struggling. They were failing to get ahead in the market. And so I was actually kind of shocked because, in a way, I went from realizing that I was no longer essentially a student. I was the one who was at that point starting to help them. I was doing these workshops, and we started doing those workshops in, 2022? Yeah, beginning of 2022, thinking that maybe they'll be interested, and turns out people really enjoyed them. They found value in the fact that they were learning how to take advantage of the Amazon platform to scale their businesses properly. And so we started just basically doing the services we plan to offer these brands to try to sell their products. We realized we could just try to service them, help them to pretty much launch and scale successfully because we knew what they needed. And most of the time it was just small things, right? They had great products, but no one knew about them. They didn't have the right pictures, they didn't have the right graphics, they didn't know how to really sell themselves, to tell their story. And as you all probably know in business, right? It's your marketing. It's the things that people look at, right? Because you can have the best product ever, but who cares if they don't know, right? Like if it's not on TV, it's not in their face, if they don't know why it matters to them personally, it might pass them by. And so that was a key thing that we realized, that we can use our experience as business owners or experts in this space to really try to help others who aren't. That was our opportunity, finding that there was a gap in the market. And this was a pivot that I think really kind of changed the entire course of our journey. Next slide. So this is a picture of me doing a workshop at the Miami Idea Center in Homestead. It was a new opening one. And just to even show you, like, I was doing a workshop really just educating people, like, why is e-commerce essential? But you can kind of see this is one that we did last year. It was a big transformation from being an e-commerce seller to basically being someone who, as we say in Shop How, we'd like to elevate, educate, and empower. The educate is on the left, the elevate is on the right, right? Like this is what we do. We've been able to get connected with a lot of many amazing brands. Um, Coffee Uplift People is my new favorite design that we were able to pull out. We were able to really just create some beautiful backgrounds for them. They're a brand that they're a coffee brand that would say with a social purpose. And so a key thing that I guess I could say about all these brands here, these were all products that we thought were awesome. We met the owners, they were amazing people. And many of them, they're trying to build a life for themselves. For Coffee Upless People, it's a brand that was founded by Tony Forte, um, Angela Yee, where she's formerly on the Breakfast Club, and so Amazon, the Back Business Accelerator, they recently, this past year, they've been reaching out to us, sending us clients like Tony, really trying to have us build and uplift Black brands who want to get on Amazon but are struggling because Amazon themselves, right? They can only do so much. They can give them some resource, they can give them some 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 tips, but they don't have someone basically who can kind of hold their hand, walk them through, build that strategy. So that's where we've been going. So in Coffee Upless People, we designed their look, their feel. We didn't do their packaging. We didn't do it in this case, but all you're seeing right there, the branding, the honey, the pink, hot pink background, like we designed that. Even for the one on the right of that, Elettery, that's a brand that we built from scratch. They're a company that does wholesale cardamom. We designed their packaging. They're based in Guatemala. And so we were able to figure out, how do we take their vision of wanting to showcase their Guatemalan heritage? How do we help them compete in a market that's primarily dominated by people who are in India, because that's primarily where people buy their cardamom from, right? We have to highlight, talk about the key value. We talk about the green gold of Guatemala, like really trying to sell this as a brand that people should want to know about, that it's different, it's unique. So a lot of these different designs and look, the feel, we're basically taking something which in a case can be thought of as mundane, but adding some energy to it, adding some liveliness to it. If we were just to see these random things without that pizzazz, you'd be like, okay, it's just a boring product. But each of these pictures, I love them because you can just feel a vibe. You catch a feeling when you just look at the presentation. And that's what I think is what's powerful about true, I think of any good business, right? Because no matter what a business is, I think you feel something when you think about it. But the key thing that you should be feeling is something good, right? Idealistically speaking. But this is how we basically try to help our brands. We try to help tell the right story to the customers that they want to target. And we do so with data. We do so with, strategy that we conduct that basically is tailored towards the platform that they're trying to sell on. Next slide, please. So, going from where we've been, because I would say, just to be real with you, last year was rough. But this year, after partnering with the Black Business Accelerator, we've been getting bigger and bigger clients. We've gotten Bronner Brothers, which is a very large Black beauty brand based in Atlanta earlier this year. We're managing their account on Amazon. We've gotten Salt XO, and I can't spill this one completely, but we're doing a partnership with Amazon that's uh, helping their partnership with Oprah in a project. And so we're working with Grocery Walker to help them get on Amazon. You'll be seeing what that looks like in a few weeks on November 1st. Um, but the key thing is that we're finally getting a lot of that push, that recognition that we've been wanting to for so long because, and I didn't really touch on this as much before, but we were struggling for a long time because we were trying to help everyone, right? We wanted to really focus on helping those small minority and women-owned businesses, which we saw in the BBA were struggling the most. But the challenge of that was because we were focused on helping so many small people, we weren't getting as much clients, we weren't getting as much funds. And that was hard, right? Because at the end of the day, you need funds to grow your business. And so for me, that commitment to really trying to still help the little guy, we needed to have volume. We need to have at least an ongoing flow of clients and also some bigger ones that can help anchor us, right? And enable us to stay so we can basically expand, scale, and continue to do the good work. So with these bigger clients coming through, it's been, I think, a breath of fresh air and a breath of just levity and liveliness in our company. So for us now, we're trying to take this in stride and, moving into an account management model, which for us is important because it allows us to get ongoing monthly revenue. By managing these larger brands, try working with them on an ongoing basis, we're basically helping to make sure that they are getting cemented and they're doing extremely well on the platform of Amazon itself. But one thing I do want to say as something that's been spectacular, it took 3 years, but we're finally got into Black Ambition. And in our first try, we're already finalists, which is something that means the world to me and my team. So out of thousands, we're the top 40. And I'll be finding out by next week, Tuesday, that we are going to be in the top 25. I'm just claiming it right now. But that's something that's really, setting the stage for our next stage of growth. Because if we can pull this off, when we pull this off, this will be an opportunity for us to really, frankly, just like start pounding the pavement. We've had so many plans over the past years. We haven't done any marketing outside of the workshops. And so we know that people love what we do. It's just trying to get the word out. So we want to finally take that time to basically put that attention to ourselves that we've basically been putting to our clients this past few years to really start getting the word out, to really start building that following. And I think we already have the pieces and frankly the know-how to really kick this off. Next slide, please.
Actually, I think that's it in terms of just us getting to know about you and the minute details of Shop How.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Javon. I have to say you are incredible. And the amount of effort and work and belief and knowing in yourself that you've poured into you and your team to get to this level. I mean, you're a top 40 finalist for Black Ambition. And we'll get into that a little bit. You all will actually drop a link where you all could actually vote for Javon so he can move on to
Hmm.
the stage. He's already claimed it. So top 25. But
Claiming it.
I also want to take a moment to honor our teachers. For all of the teachers out there who are watching and are hearing Javon's story, it is, educators like entrepreneurship and thinking, I have an idea, I want to act on it. And you're giving them the know-how and the tools to be successful and great. Javon, the fact that you might and are working hand in hand with Oprah and her team is incredible. So I want to just skip knowing we've already kind of gotten to know more about you as an entrepreneur and your business model, which is thorough. But now I want to get into social entrepreneurship. How would you define it? And why is it important to you and your team?
I think it's interesting because I think in the past, social entrepreneurship would have been, I think, a niche, but I now feel like it's becoming the norm where almost all entrepreneurship is becoming social. What I mean by that is before, I think the goal was always just to make money, right? Make money for the shareholders. But I think right now people are seeing business as thinking about the stakeholders who are also part of the community, right? Because it's like, who are you doing good for? Like, if you're just making money for you and that's it, is that really enough? And I think it's really good that the public is now having businesses live up to that expectation, right? Seeing like, how are you really leaving an impact? So I would say I define social entrepreneurship as really creating a business for a higher purpose. And I think that purpose, I don't want to, define what that is because I think, there's so many different things you want it to mean as a person. And I think it should be something that you connect with, something that you feel deeply about. For me, I would say, I didn't initially even know what I wanted to primarily do. I remember I looked into my writings from the past, and I've always talked about I wanted to provide positive a strong positive impact in the world. I wanted to have a strong positive impact, but I didn't know what that was. And so starting this company, I kind of feel like I stumbled my way into it in the e-commerce space. And so it's something that I saw an opportunity, I saw a need. And by my calling, it's my way of trying to define it, you know, define what it means for me as a person. But I think it's important to really just see it as, it's a way to create a business whose impact isn't just dollars, it's leaving behind something structurally good for the world itself. And I think it's important because as businesses scale and grow, there's all these unconscious impacts that we leave behind, right? It's almost like those footprints that we leave in the sand. And as a business gets bigger and bigger, the footprints can be good or bad. I think it really is a good age that we're in where we're having companies live up to that and having to be good stewards because I think it will lead to even the people that follow those companies to try to act and behave in that way, because many people I think right now practically worship some brands. I think it's a nice, good thing for society, for humanity. And I just think that's a nice uh, attitude that we should all start living by, especially as, we go into the 21st century.
That is huge and it's powerful. And frankly, I agree. I mean, I think we're in an age today where um, every age demographic, but particularly our young people, are finding it
Hmm.
to support brands in a major saturated industry that stand for something as opposed to the big gigantic. For example, there are friends around me, some of them might drink, Starbucks coffee or Dunkin' Donuts coffee, but then there's a few of us that go to the local mom and pop shop because everything is made out of biodegradable materials. They're sourcing from local farmers markets around the area. And those are, attributes that really lean into that target market. So I think everything you talked about was completely on the money. So now I want to lead into more of a more granular question. So in terms of your passions, have you ever combined social justice causes within your entrepreneurship journey? And if so, what did that look like for you, Javon?
Yeah, I would say we do that with not every single company, but I would say I kind of see it, for example, in some of the brands that we work with, right? Because some brands, like, it's just plain, right? But we always try to like figure out their why, right? Like, why are you doing this? And we try to exemplify that. Cup, the coffee uplifts people, the coffee brand that you saw with the pink. I want to go back to that because I forgot to touch on that in the first question, Like they're a social entrepreneurial company, right? That just happens to sell coffee. And Dyer, which you probably saw on the bottom left, please go back to that their bag for the Our Ask section, please. Um, because it was something that we made for them because they always talked about, um, when we do a form for them, we wanted to figure out what's their thing. And they said it's Dyer. And you see the bottom right of that infographic. It stands for diversity, inclusion, representation, and equity. Because for them, they started Cup during the COVID pandemic because they wanted to find a way that they can help the community. And so they happened to use coffee as a vehicle, right? This was a business that was literally planned with the purpose of doing that. And so it's amazing because they made it to where, like, if you go through on Amazon, for example, and look at this brand, like you'll see that the CEO, he went to all the farms, he met with the people individually. You see him there picking the coffee, checking it out, like really testing it, not just buying from, God knows who, but he really put in the energy to make sure that it was conscientious. The people that he worked with, they're fair trade, they're well paid, everything's, the highest quality. And their vision is that they want to make sure that coffee itself, because they say coffee is in need of dire change, right? It's because they say that coffee is primarily from places, it's originally from Ethiopia. It's been spread around the world to other parts of Latin America, Asia, parts of Africa. But the people at the bottom, the people who are the farmers, usually never get, that their fair shake. It's usually the people, the wealthier countries who, in a way, kind of exploit it. So this is their way of trying to um, level the playing field, so to speak, in the coffee industry. And so it's just the reason why I would say is defining it is so difficult is because kind of like Denise said, it's a purpose. And in a way, you kind of define what that purpose is, right? But the key thing is that it leads to a net positive impact in the community, right? In the way that you choose. And obviously it's not going to be picture perfect, right? But the key thing is to try to do the best that you can to leave a positive impact for the people that you choose to uplift. Um, or if you try to help positive impact or maybe the environment itself. So going back to the question itself, um, slide, please. How have I combined my passion? I would say for me, I would say I didn't plan it, but I would say the key thing is for me that I combine my passion of trying to help people because I think that's something for me that sounds very plain, to be honest, but I've always been that type of guy where like, I don't just kind of can just watch something bad happen and I could just sit back and watch. Creating Shop Howell was really a response to seeing the needs of the people in our cohort, seeing that they were struggling and seeing that we had a way to help them. So I would say literally the business is literally a byproduct of this, is seeing that I want to support people. And I think I kind of made it a social justice cause, so to speak, for myself because I saw it occurring. Um, and I think that's really kind of it. I know it's kind of a boring answer, but I think honestly, it's really just me seeing that this was something that was necessary, that I had a way to make a positive impact. And that's how I've taken to addressing that.
Actually, I don't think your answer was boring at all. I think it tied in beautifully. And because I was already talking about coffee and you went back to Dyer, I connect
Yeah.
immediately so much more to that brand because its job is to uplift people. And when you drink coffee, you're getting the energy, but
Mhm.
it's such a deep meaning and way to promote Dyer, honestly. Um, I kind of want to start and end every mindset maker series that I host with a phrase. Last time we had a phrase, and I'm really getting the
Mhm.
sense that tonight's phrase is entrepreneurship beyond the dollar. And so
I like that.
right? So social entrepreneurship is essentially the business that you create with a purpose. And I think for our students and teachers, as you're encouraging students to move throughout the curriculum, what's their passion? What is their why? And how can it help others within their cohort or their community? So with that being said, social entrepreneurship might have a very, diverse meanings, with people. So I'm curious to know for you, Javon, what would you say are some misconceptions that people might have within social entrepreneurship?
I would say one is that you have to be a nonprofit. And I remember this, I think explicitly well also because when I took my social entrepreneurship class back in undergrad, I remember one of the main lessons my teacher told us was that she's done. nonprofit and she's done for profit. And she's like, she does not recommend a social entrepreneur to be a nonprofit. And she says the reason why is that both companies are exactly the same in a way, because both of them need money to operate. The only difference is what do they do with the extra funds that they have. A nonprofit really just tries to reinvest it, while a for-profit basically uses it to try and scale and grow. And so she kind of really emphasizes that, what's the point of like being stuck in a position where you're constantly relying on others to survive? It's better to basically have that control be for you. Because frankly, also, I believe for a nonprofit, 20% of the funds that they make usually has to go to help getting more funds. So it's like you're a never-ending train. Which basically for a for-profit is practically their marketing, right? It's like the same ratio. So that's one, that you have to be a nonprofit. The second one, I think, is that it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. And I think because you're doing something that's socially good and you're focusing on more than just a dollar, it can be very hard to balance out um, funds, really. Like for us, the challenge was that in the beginning, we were providing very high quality work. But in the beginning, also because we were kind of new, I didn't plan on making an agency. We just kind of sprung out of constantly, finding ways to support the businesses. But I realized that we were kind of stuck in a flow where we're trying to sell high quality services at a low price because we were wanted to stay within the confines of supporting the small businesses who generally don't have capital. And so I stuck it out for a very long time, basically, getting grants, getting resources, trying to basically survive by the craziest ways, man. Like credit cards just to stay in business because I felt like, you know, I felt guilty, I was giving people discounts all the time because they had these visions. I bought into it. I love it. And I was just like, I have to support them. But then I think it's just realizing like, and I have this later on, it's like you can't help anyone if you can't help yourself. You know what I mean? And so I think that's one of the things that people I think, might mistake is that yes, it feels good. Yeah, you're doing something awesome, but is it worth it if like, you don't know if you're gonna eat the next day? Like these are things that I think people should keep in mind that social entrepreneurship shouldn't mean basically that you're selling your kidney in order to make the business survive. And I've met people who are like, I know one person who I know is kind of like a weird thing to say, but she's done grant writing for all these big organizations, but she doesn't want to do grant writing for a foundation that she wants to make because she feels like, she doesn't want to basically, get in that field, get that way of where people are telling her how to spend the money. But at the end of the day, I was like, but then you're using your own money and you're not making like a ton of it. So like she was sponsoring her own grants, support people. And I'm like, I love that you're passionate about it, but you still need money. Like you're only helping maybe one person a year. Like if you were able to use the skill that you have, that you've gotten people millions of dollars for in grants, how many more people could you impact? So, I kind of see it where like people sometimes, because there's social impact, they think that trying to make money is like evil and that money is not what they want to go for. But at the end of the day, money's what you need to survive. You can help way more people if you have more money. But the challenge, though, I do have to say, is helping the people but not losing and selling out your values. Because I would say that's the one draw of the for-profit that can lead you astray. You can start to basically prioritize the funds, the people, that you're like your investors more than the community. So I would say the other side of it is making sure that the people that you work with, the people that are funding you, they understand and they know what you're about. And I think you have to also be conscious about, that this is going to be probably a harder journey, harder than most, and that you just have to have the mindset that it's going to probably be a little bit more difficult, but at the end of the day, it's going to probably feel more worth it because you know that, every day you wake up, even if you're busting your butt, you feel that you've done something genuinely positive for the world. And that's what I would say for me. That's very important.
Thank you so much for that. And I think you really hit on the balance between making
Hmm.
money for your company, not being evil in terms of social entrepreneurship. You have to sustain yourself, but also it's entrepreneurship beyond the dollar. So that fine balance is something that I think a lot of our social young innovators and entrepreneurs out there will have to face. But
Hmm.
don't be discouraged. As long as you have the passion for it and you continue along that path, you'll get there. So definitely
Hmm.
that. I'm curious to know more about your feat with Black Ambition. So please tell us more about it, your accomplishments. How did it come about? How did it fly on your radar? And why is this exciting opportunity amazing for you and your company?
So just FYI, I've been applying for 3 years now, and I finally got on the third try. But this is a program that started off in 2020 by Pharrell, the Louis Vuitton Foundation, Adidas, and I think a few other big companies. But the key thing is really trying to support Black and Latino founders who are generally underserved, very underfunded compared to non-whites, and so sorry, to the Caucasian population. And so it's just really trying to directly, inject funds with high promising companies who are doing good in their communities and have high potential products and services. And so I think this has been a really great program because it's put a spotlight on many businesses who I think otherwise might not have gotten that attention or had the ability to basically project as much impact um, as they could have, right? It's funny, I actually know the person who won second place last year, and she also was doing an ecom focused type of business. She had a logistics company where she specialized in trying to help small businesses. She's also based in Atlanta. Most are minority owned as well, but helping them to get their products ready for online. And so it's just funny because it was just like, man, like we're coming after you, right? Like, but in a kind of fun, friendly way because like she's awesome. Like the first person that I've met who's like has the same passion. And it was just so validating, like being in an ecosystem where we found people because in the beginning I thought we were just the only ones, right? We were literally like always the only ones who were like, hey, let's talk about e-commerce. People were saying e-commerce is a niche. It's not something that's a big deal. And it's like, no, it's the whole deal. Everything's turning online. Like that's the next phase. But meeting her, seeing how she got so far, that was also inspiring for me to be like, if she can do this, we can knock this out of the park. So for me, getting to first just be one of the semifinalists, which I found out back in May, was astounding, beating out thousands of applicants. But we found out that on October 1st that we were now finalists, top 40. The significance of it is that now I'll find out by Tuesday, basically, if we're the top 25 and become a prize winner. Basically, we'll be getting investment from the prize pool, the lowest being 16,000, the top prize being $1 million. And so for us, like we have a thing we're going to ask you guys to vote coming up, and the whole point is pretty much please vote. This is the part of the competition, like seeing how many people can we really rally behind us. And so for us, we really want to take this home. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of ways we want to scale and grow our company. And I think that, this will really help us to really one, build some tech because we've had some thoughts on it for a while. We've already worked out some ways of how we can do it, but it's the way to essentially scale our impact. A lot of what we do is primarily, needs people to build the strategy, to build the mechanisms, to design, right? But what we want to do is basically in the long term is have AI be a part of that. A lot of what we do, we found ways of having AI assist us, but you know, we think that we can probably take this to the next level. And I think that's one of the key things I would like to use the money for is to really invest in our company, invest in marketing because we've never done it, and last but not least, to invest in technology to really help us scale the impact that we've had thus far and really try to help the large group out there. Like I'm not trying to just do one small band-aid fix. I'm really trying to go the whole 9 yards and really level the e-commerce playing field. That's my goal. That's my vision. And so I hope you guys can support me on this.
Absolutely. And wishing you the best of luck there. You've already claimed it. We have the QR
I
code
claim it.
here. Let's just take a moment to please scan the QR code, please. I'll do it myself now, although I already voted. And vote for Javon Hunt, please. His business name is Shop Howell.
I'll actually share with you the link also in the chat as well. It's on a platform called Unoodle. But basically, you go in, it's one vote per phone number. So I highly advise it. If you have a spouse, if you have some kids anywhere, if you have a second cell phone, use it. Like I've been milking every single possibility. I've told my friends, your mom, do you have a cell phone? Perfect. Tell them to vote.
Anyone with a cell phone. How amazing would it be if we had a Nifty alum win the Black Ambition Prize? That would be
That
amazing.
would be amazing. That would be amazing. No, seriously, it'll be so full circle, you know?
Because
Um,
then could we really say, because you're funded, it would truly be entrepreneurship beyond the dollar.
it
But
really would be, honestly. Like, I think they're doing so many amazing, cool things in their organization. Like, I already feel really, I think just frankly, just amazed and inspired because even being in the cohort, you meet some amazing businesses tackling some issues that I think even the crazy part is things that you might not even know about because there's so many challenges, I think, within certain communities where there's no real solutions to, um, because, the mass market doesn't see it as an issue, right? So for example, we work with businesses before that, they do beauty, but it's focused on people of color, right? Because one of the things that people don't realize, and I remember I even worked at Procter and Gamble back when I was a student. I remember there was even a situation where people in the Pantene team were saying that they don't even use Pantene, and it was because they were black, and they were saying like the Pantene products, they work on the Pantene team, but it's not made for black hair. And so they were able to really then tap into that and say, okay, this is how we can take Pantene and create a special line, a special collection that's focused on Black and ethnic hair. And so I think it's just, because again, like for so long, Black women actually had the lowest investment rates. Certain certain products, certain needs just weren't being fulfilled. And it wasn't that there wasn't a market. There was a market. It's just that people didn't know,
yeah,
right? Because those people that could have made it didn't have the resources. So I think, all of this leads just to, a huge change, not just in the market, but the ecosystem and the world itself, because now you're having the ability, for example, I think e-commerce really kind of opens up the door for so many people who have never opened a business because it makes it so much more accessible. So I think even for what we're trying to do, the goal is that it seems small, but by increasing the amount of people that can get into the space, you're increasing the amount of opportunity, the amount of, I think, likely the amount of success that we're going to see overall because we're all going to have a stronger voice
yeah,
in what we have, the products that we have, and the way that we interact with the world because I think most of these businesses are going to have to be social entrepreneurial
yeah,
because I think that's what people are trying to buy into nowadays. Like people that buy the coffee, for example, they
yeah.
buy it because they love the mission. And imagine what if every coffee company starts trying to do this as a way to compete, right? It just naturally leads to this vehicle of people trying to support
Positivity.
businesses that supports positivity. Like, I think that would be amazing. That's the kind of world that I think we're trying to build here.
Absolutely. And I think we're certainly on our way to more up
Hmm.
companies that truly care about their why, their purpose. So please, if you all haven't yet, please scan that QR code. I think we have time for maybe 1 to 2 more questions from you, Javon. I'm going to pause here really quick, though. Teachers, as you're listening to Javon and his amazing story, he knows a lot. If you want to pick his brain, please take some time to ask questions so that he could answer you all directly. But I have to advocate for our students now, right? I'm so curious with you being a Nifty alum. If you could think of 2 tips that you would love to impart on our Nifty students, so the teachers that are watching can take it back to their classroom. Our students might be thinking about funding their own business as an entrepreneur socially. So, what tips can you give them?
Yeah, I would say the first one, and I did already plan this part at least. Can you go to the next slide, please? Do. I actually kind of wanted to share with you guys this because these are several things that I kind of found for myself that I thought were very powerful. The first, and I had four, so not two, so I'm being an overachiever. The first is start small. So I actually learned this one at the very top in the beginning, right? It's like, they say you have to build a car while driving it or build an airplane while you're falling. But then I heard someone said, like, that's a bad idea. And the reason why is that the plane isn't really operable until everything is built. Neither is the car. You can't drive a car off the lot if it's missing a steering wheel, if it's missing if it's missing the tires, if it's missing the seats. And so the idea is being open and willing just to start small with a simple MVP prototype. So basically, you see in the bottom, it's a person starting off with just a skateboard. That's in essence, it's like you're saying, start with a product, not a good one, but just one that does the very basic, right? If the goal is to, and I'm going to think of Elon Musk for a second. In the very beginning, he wasn't trying, like you guys saw, he landed that spaceship the other day and caught it with some giant chopstick arms, right? Like that's insane. But in the very beginning, his plan was just to make the cheapest rocket possible. Not the best, but just the cheapest rocket possible. And so he started off with basically a skateboard, something that was practically just, a bottle rocket on steroids. But then he worked at it, got some little better handling, and he got like the little handle, then you got the scooter. Then you have the bicycle. And so the idea is that you kind of just start off with just the basics, because in all of this is how you learn. And one of the things I kind of liked about for our company, we kind of took a lot of this stuff that I shared here, but we did it honestly kind of learning, like on the fly. Because the next one about the sprint, not a marathon, you know, as a social entrepreneur, I think you're going to go through more BS, excuse my language, than other people because you're trying to basically satisfy not just the money, but also the impact, right? You're going to feel bad if, what if you're making money, but you're not making a change? Or what if the community isn't receptive to your stuff? You really have to be conscientious. And this picture that I shared, it has a lot of detail, by the way, if you can see, it's like you kind of start off with basically thinking, okay, I got this is the best idea ever. But then you're like, it'll be fun. But then you're like, oh my God, it's harder than I thought. Then you go through thinking, oh my God, is this going to work? Then it's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Then you're like, okay, it's getting better. And forget that. Sometimes it gets even lower. You're probably thinking like, oh my God, like what did I get myself into? Like I'm in debt. And then it's like, it's keep going and plugging along. Because until you basically get deep and you really understand the issue, that's when you're going to slowly work your way around. Because even for me, and I'll just be real, we started off selling products. Then we started thinking we were going to help people sell their products better than them. Then we started off thinking, let's just make their products look pretty. Then we said, let's do some education with some workshops. Then we said, okay, let's do social media. And then we said, oh God, social media is hard. Let's get away from social media. Then we said, okay, let's do this web design for this one person. Let's keep doing web design. Then we're like, okay, no one else came to us for web design. Okay, let's stop doing web design. Then we're like, okay, let's do this stuff for what was it again? We started helping someone with their packaging because they're like, hey, I need better packaging. Then we said, wow, we could do packaging really good. So we kept doing packaging. Then we came back to websites because we're like, okay, now people are asking for us to do that again. Let's figure out we can do Shopify. Let's not do WordPress. WordPress is too hard. So we stuck to doing Shopify. Then we said, okay, let's keep doing for this Amazon stuff. Let's raise our prices. Let's try to get more partners. Partners suck. Let's stop doing partners. Let's do like we went through so many cycles of just trying what works and what didn't work. And honestly, sometimes it feels frustrating because even the things that you think would be perfect, the things that would be easy, sometimes that's not what people end up liking. And even sometimes things that we tried in the very beginning, we stopped, but we ended up going back to later when we had the resources, when we had the expertise, when we had the knowledge. And now we're basically doing something that we had thought about in the very beginning, like account management. But back then, we didn't have the experience. We didn't have the team large enough for account management. Now we do. So I would say in general, like the journey is not a straight line. People talk about that all the time, but it's like sometimes it's like a knot, like you get all over the place. So that's one of the key things. Is just letting them know, just stay in the game. As long as you're in the game, you didn't lose because it's a marathon. You can always speed up, you can get better, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. Third, I think it's very, very, very important to co-create solutions with the people that you're trying to serve. As a social impact company, that's critical because a lot of times, well, not all the time, but I would say especially if you're not a part of the community you're trying to help. For example, a big part of the community that we do serve is women. I'm the CEO, but obviously I'm not a woman. And so I have to kind of get a better understanding of what are their real challenges. We started understanding, oh, a lot of them are solo mom, right? I don't even have kids, but I have to understand like, okay, they don't have kids. So we realize they don't have time. They don't have the energy. They probably are working two jobs because they're doing the business and they're working to take care of their kids. So it's like we have to start thinking, how do we then better provide our services that can take advantage of the fact that they don't have as much time, that can maybe make the small amount of time that they have more impactful. So it's thinking like that, right? Thinking about how can you really provide a product or a solution that really tackles those deeper issues. When you can get that close to your client, then you can start to provide solutions that no one else can, because you're basically working with them side by side. With the BBA, I think that was something that really was awesome for us because we were working hands in hand with the people in our cohort, and we were literally seeing how these problems were being solved, with them. We were creating workshops, seeing what workshops worked well, see what things they were receptive to, seeing what services they said they needed help with. This was all literally how we created our business. But it wasn't always easy. But the key thing is also just understanding that if you work with them and not really working, not against them, but kind of just not having them be a part of the process, you could be building something that ultimately it serves no one. So the key thing is keep them in the loop, keep getting that feedback, and start having them be a part of your learning process, your grow and learning process. And then last but not least, I mentioned this a little bit in the beginning, but self-care isn't selfish, right? In the very beginning, I was putting everything that I had into the business to be cheap, to try and, I was giving my team a lot, I was giving the company a lot, that was the clients a lot, but I wasn't giving me a lot, right? I was basically having myself always be last. And it's normal for an entrepreneur. But I think the key thing is you can't do that forever, right? Like at the end of the day, if the business is paying everyone but you, you're just basically, it's charity, and that's not sustainable. You need to be like, unless you're Bill Gates or something and you just have all that money, of course. But if you're still working hard, you have to still think about it as like, this isn't a business yet, because if you die and the business dies, that's not a business. You want a business where, like, if you, let's just say, hopefully not get hit by a bus, that your business can still continue to do the good that you were doing before. And I think that's the way that I think we should try to make our social entrepreneurship be thought of. It's something to where it's beyond us, where it can survive on its own, and it can be basically its own, it can run on its own engine. Sorry, running out of battery, so I want to make sure I can get that worked on quickly. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Any other questions, Vinay?
That's actually all that we have time for. Javon, you've been I personally have learned so
No
much from
problem.
you, and I'm super inspired
Hmm.
and can't wait to continue to push Black ambition and make sure you get in that top 25. But
Thank you.
one thing that stuck with me is one, you're not a business if you're not making money. It's not self
Hmm.
pour into you all as entrepreneurs and teachers as you're, talking to the students. It's not selfish, but keeping in mind the balance. And my favorite phrase of the night is entrepreneurship beyond the dollar. So thank you so
Yes.
for your time and your expertise, Javon. We appreciate it. And that has been another episode of our webinar, the Nifty Mindset Maker series. Everyone, please have a great rest of your night.